community is the compass, built not of sameness, but of voices varied and vibrant, stitched together in a quilt of care and resistance. Let difference be our strength, not our division.
As my man said, let difference be our strength. When they talk about color, uh, they like to segregate us when it comes to color, but we already understand that color is a construct. It was something that was made up. So we can't always look at everything through the prism of color. So this evening, thank you very much for guys for tuning into Polirics. My name is Stevenson, K. Stevenson. I'm always here with my brother. He's like the analyst, which would be Mr. Ronald Yates. Hey, what's
How you
going on,
doing?
brother?
How you
Let
doing,
me
brother?
let me try one of your words. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. So this week we've had a crazy week. Let me start off by saying you were missed last week, and I
Oh,
guess the
thank you,
show could have
brother.
went on. Yeah, the show could have went on, but it wouldn't have been a show, wouldn't have been the same kind of show without you.
Well, thank you
you know,
so much.
yeah, you're very informative, and your information is much needed. Um,
Much appreciated.
this week we've had a crazy week, man. We've had people that want to mess around with the VA and the funding that's going to the VA. I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. And it's tough enough on us as it is, just trying to get some benefits. And now we got these crazy people. They want to start taking funding from the VA. What do you think of that one?
Well, I think with our current administration, that is to be expected, right? What's happening is I saw something on Facebook where they talked about this being the largest redistribution of wealth. And yeah, it didn't start with Trump, but Trump is taking it to a whole new and unprecedented level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of things that were, sacred under past administrations, things like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, not necessarily so with Trump. Trump is now cutting, I don't want to say cutting, let's say slashing the budget for Medicaid, for Medicare, for domestic programs like SNAP and other supplemental food services. So, you know, would he not touch the VA? It's unlikely.
What I think is that these people here in America that are, when I say America, I'm talking about the Trump administration and his MAGA people. I really think they should be ashamed of themselves, the way that they conducted themselves throughout this whole time during the administration. They allowed a guy who's got a 34 count convicted felon. He's a sex abuser. We know that. He's been convicted of that. He's a liar. He lied about all of his businesses, all this thing. But they allowed this type of person to come in here to get voted into this administration to do the things that he's doing it with the immigration. I mean, look, like when they start talking about naturally born here and they want to get rid of the people that were naturally born here, like the second generation, I guess. You got the first people that come, they supposedly got here illegal, but then you had the ones that were born here after that. So he should be on a plane deporting himself because he's already a convicted criminal. And he's, as far as the birthright thing, then yeah, he falls into that category too.
Well, when you say the MAGA people should be ashamed of themselves, well, the MAGA people have no shame, and that is apparent. When you can look at the images of children being blown to bits, being starved to death in Gaza, and you say nothing, when you have uh, nothing to say about the situation in Sudan, which is worse than the current situation in Gaza, when you sit there and applaud while Trump is doing things like making homelessness illegal, when you do things like take people who are just hardworking people have come to this country. Okay, I mean, they came across the border. They didn't um, follow the proper path to citizenship because for a lot of them, there was no clear path. So they came to this country and they worked hard. They were productive members of society. Well, according to the Trump administration, they're all criminals and they all
Hmm.
needed to be rounded up. And the MAGA people are just sitting there applauding, right? Like, it's all okay. Keep going, Mr. President. You're doing a great job. But I think, and I've said this before, what they're failing to understand, we're already in an authoritarian society. But what happens when Trump is no longer the head of the Republican Party and no longer the president? What happens if now a Democrat is elected with these unprecedented powers that Trump has? What will the MAGA folks have to say then? What
Mhm.
will the Republican Party have to say then?
I guess the same thing that the Tea Party had to say. Remember, the Tea Party was all up in arms,
Sure.
but the thing that I did respect about the Tea Party, even though they didn't win any big, but they got their own people in there, which is the Democrats are having a hard time doing that. I'm not going to say that the Democrats aren't fighting, because I know a couple of them, and I know that they're out there. They're busting their butt every day. You know, especially here in Pennsylvania. They're down there in Harrisburg, and they're down there every day fighting and arguing, and especially with this governor that we have now. He's a Trump supporter, you know. Did you know that?
Are you talking about Shapiro?
No. No. I'm talking about our congressman.
Oh, okay. I thought you said governor.
It's my bad. I may have misspoke. But our congressman, he
Are
sides
you
with
talking
Trump.
about Bresnahan?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Rob Bresnahan.
And
Yes,
he sides with Trump.
he does.
Yeah, you know,
He
and
does.
this is what I don't. So where is that going to leave us here in Pennsylvania? I mean, we had a congressman that actually gave a damn. You know, Matt
Hmm.
Cartwright. Matt Cartwright
Right.
is a very decent man. I haven't met this guy yet, but from what I can tell from his policies, I don't agree with his policies. I don't agree with the fact that he decided to go with Trump, that he went along with the big better bill.
Well, I think
Or you go big
Rob
beautiful
Bresnahan.
bill.
Well, I think Rob Bresnahan realized he couldn't get elected without Trump. And I think that now that he is in office, because he rode on Trump's coattails to get elected, he has to now stay loyal to Trump. Because like so many in the Republican Party, their fear is if they were to anger Trump and Trump pulls support for them. I mean, there have been times when Trump threatened to primary some in the Republican Party who he felt were being disloyal.
Mm-hmm.
In order to avoid that, many in the Republican Party have decided to go along with Trump, even though they know it may not be in their best interest. In the long term, they're just thinking short term. 2026 is a possibility I may get reelected. And you see things starting to happen already, like in Texas, where they've decided to suddenly redraw the congressional districts that would heavily favor the Republican Party. Trump, and I don't know where he gets this from, because these congressional lines are normally done every 10 years along with the census. If there's an increase, okay, you're entitled to another representative. Well, Trump just came up with the number 5.
Mm-hmm.
He said we are entitled to 5 seats. I don't know where the entitlement comes from, but he has people like Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, and others inside the Texas legislature who are actively redrawing these lines, trying to force the Democrats who fled the state to come back and to sit there while they gerrymander, many districts in Texas to make them more favorable to Republicans holding on to power.
And you notice the only ones that he's going after pretty much are cities like with the mayors that have African Americans in charge of them. Those are the
It's,
ones that he's going after.
it seems like he's going after, yes, African Americans and predominantly um, Democratic held locations, right? So just recently, as of the last 24, 48 hours, he's taking control of the police force in DC and sent in the National Guard. Now, according to government statistics, his own government, crime stats are down in many of the major cities, DC
Mm-hmm.
being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
well, why are you sending in the National Guard if there was no request from the mayor of the city, the chief executive of the city of DC, the District of Columbia, has not requested assistance, federal assistance, has not asked for the National Guard to be deployed. So if the chief executive of the city or District of Columbia does not think that crime is such a major problem where she needs assistance from the National Guard, how does Trump know that the National Guard is required? What does he know that she doesn't?
You know what he knows? What he knows is that he wants to turn the United States into martial law. He wants to impose martial law across the United States. This way, he has full control of the military, which he already has. Also, he can have full control of the police department. He can do what he wants to do with the National Guard. That's why he was able to do what he's doing with the immigrants, because he came up with some law out of his ass from like the 1700s or something, some war act or something, saying that we were being invaded by the immigrants. So he was able to impose that. That's the way he's able to do what he's doing with them. And he's doing the same thing with them. Now you think about this. He's taking these people, imprisoning them, right? Here in America, what are we going to use our prisoners for? I believe our prisoners are going to end up taking their place in the fields. And this way they can go back to getting free labor at the expense of the incarcerated here.
Well, Trump has already said that was going to happen, right? He talked about that several weeks ago at a press conference when he was asked pretty much directly who would take the place of these immigrants. And he talked about the old system where you had a sheriff who would receive kickbacks, and he would supply labor to various companies. And for everybody, it was pretty lucrative. The sheriff, of course, would get paid for the labor, and of course, labor costs will remain low for the contractors, right? They wouldn't have to pay a salary, benefits, anything. You just have prison labor. Well, Trump has already talked about that. He's also discussed lowering the age of child labor, I think down to 12 years old.
Yeah,
so
I think
that
it was lower
young
than that,
children,
but I think 12 was 12 years old. You're right, somewhere around that area.
and so that kids as young as 12 can go out into the fields
and work at night. Work at night. That was another thing we had.
Yes, yes.
Work at night so they can work at night.
Right. And yet, still, with all of that, there are still probably a third of this country that are still staunch Trump supporters. That is until their children or people in their community are forced out onto some of these farms, these huge industrial farms, and they're, subjected to backbreaking work. Then maybe their stance will change. And you have to keep in mind that, think about how many people that supported Trump, like say those farmers, that now are saying, Trump, you're killing us. If it's not the loss of our labor force, it's the tariffs. We can't sell our soybeans to China, which would be the major importer of American soybeans. Now, these soybeans are sitting on the market. And of course, the market, the stock prices are dropping. And as the prices drop, well, what happens with these farmers is no income coming in. A lot of these farms are going to be lost to foreclosure.
All right. Yo, check this out. So I don't know if you heard over the weekend or this past week. Did you hear Ice Cube? Ice Cube?
No.
He was on the radio, television, whatever, whining and complaining. I'm surprised. I don't believe it. What this administration is doing, and they're horrible and terrible. Wasn't this the same guy that told you to vote for Trump? That he was a Trump supporter and he was behind Trump, like Snoop Doggy Dogg was behind Trump. This Ice Cube was the same way. So now he's back. He's backtracking now, as he normally does. But he's backtracking now. Not that I'm a big, huge fan of Ice Cube. I'm not into that. Even with the rap music, I know he's big into all of that, but I'm not into the buffoonery. You know that already. But he got on there like a buffoon, backtracking, trying to tell people now how bad it is under Trump's rule. But he was one of the people that helped put him in power.
We know there are a lot of people now that are having a great deal of regret, right? Because now it's affecting their bottom line, it's affecting their communities, right? And we haven't seen the worst of it yet. Some of these tariffs have just taken effect. These cuts have not yet taken effect.
Hmm.
As these cuts begin to take effect, and things are cut like the subsidy for home heating oil in some places, subsidies for electric bills in some places, when those cuts come into effect and these people no longer receive those subsidies, when those programs like SNAP are cut, and those people who rely on supplemental nutritional aid and assistance, it's really going to hit home. How can you support someone who's taking food off your table?
Hmm.
And I saw something in the New York Times, a few weeks back. There's a plant down in North Carolina, a paper plant. Plant has been there in existence for over 100 years. Well, that plant is slated to close this year, within months. That paper mill is going to close. That paper mill is the lifeblood of not just that town, but that county. So they say that for every 100 jobs that are lost, more than 700 ancillary jobs are lost. That town is going to end up like Detroit after the loss of the auto industry. It'll become a ghost town. Nothing is coming to replace, this paper plant.
I
And
thought
this
he
is
was
under
bringing.
Trump.
I thought he said he was bringing jobs back to America. That's just a ruse, man. And like I said, even if they come back, I don't think they can afford it. That's why they left in the first place. There's no profit, no money to be made. They'd have to charge us as Americans so much more money for our products and services. And I think all of this, what you were talking about, I think this comes from the tariffs, man. This is in 2026. We're gonna see what the tariffs are gonna bring and how much more the Americans are going to have to pay. Because you figure, all right, well, he said, well, we're going to raise tariffs 10%. So whatever you're paying on, even though you're paying a high price now, you're going to pay 10% more. I know his tariff prices were higher than that, but I don't understand why American people. Here's what kills me. I've spoken to a couple of people out in the street. They really think that the tariffs are put into place to put all these other countries and to keep them under control, to make them do it.
Hmm.
They don't realize. I mean, even Reagan had to say it back then. Look, the tariffs, so they work good in a pinch and real quick, but for any lengthy amount, no, people are going to lose their jobs, businesses are going to close up, and this is what's starting to happen now because I even hear that hospitals now are closing down, closing
Yeah.
up. They can't afford it. My thing is like when we first opened up tonight, the first thing I said is those MAGA people, those Make America Great people, they need to be ashamed of themselves because they helped put this man in the office. They have to take some responsibility for this. You know,
Well, I'll tell you something. Prior to coming on air, you and I were talking, about healthcare, right?
right?
If you're trying to find a doctor, and now you can go online and look at the doctor's reviews. So if you say you want to find a cardiologist and you go and you check his reviews, and none of his patients survived, not a single patient lived after him performing surgery, would you go to that
Hell
cardiologist?
to the no.
Okay. We've elected a man, right, who says, I'm going to save America. I'm going to fix this economy. You couldn't fix your own businesses. None of your businesses survived.
Mm-hmm.
There is no Trump Airlines. There is no Trump University. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There have been so many other failures. Along with that, 6 bankruptcies. So if you can't fix your business, how are you going to save mine? Yet, with that knowledge, there are still people, the MAGA people, who say that Trump is our best chance. But our best chance at what? America, like Israel, is becoming a pariah. Trump cannot go anywhere and be welcome other than Israel. Other than that, there's a rumor floating around that in what's called the Middle East, there is a bounty on his head.
Hmm.
So he can't
Hmm.
go there because they don't want him. He
Hmm.
can't go to Asia because they don't want him. China damn sure don't want him. He can't go to Europe because the European allies, they don't want him because of his shifting away from NATO and the tariffs that he's imposed on Europe. Canada, our closest neighbor and trading partner, they don't want him.
Hmm.
Central South America, where he's sending back people who are just hardworking people, they don't want him. So the only place Trump can go and be welcomed is here in America and Israel. Other than
And
that, nobody wants him around.
I'm gonna tell you, here in America, those numbers are getting short now, getting shorter and shorter. And I'm not just talking about Democratic people. I'm talking about Republicans. There are a lot of Republicans that are not going for this. Then they're not, and they're fighting. They're fighting kind of with the Republicans. A lot of things are being done. What do you call it? Bipartisan. And I hope
Well,
that bipartisan that they decide to impeach this son of a bitch again and get him out of
well,
there.
that's unlikely to happen
Hmm.
because not only is he in control of the legislature, he's also got the Supreme Court. So that's unlikely to happen. Now, when you talk about fighting, you have to understand something, right? The normal legislative process is not going to work. It's not. Trump has control of that, right?
Hmm.
Any bill that comes before the Senate floor, that is anti-Trump is going to be immediately voted down. Ridiculous bills like this big, beautiful bill, that'll pass, but you
Hmm.
can't do things like reduce or eliminate student debt. You can't do things like increased funding for education, for healthcare. You can't do those things, but you can slash healthcare. You can slash education, and you could take billions of dollars and give it to the top 0.5% so they can enjoy these huge tax breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that make America great again? How does that strengthen our economy?
Of course it doesn't. Of course it does not. Of course it never has. But we're gonna pick this up. We're gonna be right back. We got to play our little.
Hi, we're Chantel Davis and Brian Davis. We own Willie Mays Place and Legacy Vines Winery, located in Gilbert, Pennsylvania. We're open Wednesday through Saturday for dinner and wine flights and really delicious Southern comfort food. Come and join us. We'll happily seat you, your family. We have a beautiful farm-to-table garden as well as 2 therapy donkeys named Freedom and Friar Tuck that you're welcome to come and visit. Give us a call if you have any questions or would like to make a reservation, and we look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, again, that's a really good restaurant, man. I've been there a couple of times, and matter of fact, I think I may take me a trip over there next week and get me some of them fish and grits, man.
Sounds
let's,
good.
let's pick back up where we left off at.
Mhm.
Wow, moment of silence. What's happening? Yeah. All right?
Well, yeah. I thought you were going to play a clip or something, but
Oh, no. You didn't ask me for any clips this week, so
oh
if
no, I didn't. I saw something. This is kind of getting off topic, but I saw something yesterday. It was actually a
Mhm.
documentary, and it was called I think it was called Trap Queens, about women, particularly black women, who found themselves in upper echelons of like the drug trade in some of the inner cities of America. And there was one in particular that kind of struck me. This woman, she was tried, convicted, and given a really long sentence. And this is based on a law that was signed by President Reagan. So we're talking back in the 80s. What's interesting, this woman was convicted of selling crack cocaine. Now, when
I'm
you
sorry.
talk
Was
about
that during with what was her name? The Reagan's wife and Nancy with the
when she
just
talked
say
about
no.
just say no,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
all part of that
Yeah.
anti-drug, nonsense.
Mm.
But when you talk about history repeating itself, so now you have a president who twice impeached, who is adjudicated sexual offender, who has 34 felony convictions, who says, I'm going to take over places like Los Angeles and now DC, and I'm going to bring justice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, juxtapose that against Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan signed legislation that made these long draconian prison sentences for people who sell crack cocaine. However, it was Ronald Reagan and his administration that introduced the crack cocaine into the inner cities of America.
Mm.
It was Ronald Reagan wanting to continue the war in Nicaragua against the Sandinistas after Congress had cut off funding. After he was told, Mr. President, it is unconstitutional what you're doing in Nicaragua. Him not wanting to give up took Oliver North and some other members of his cabinet, and they began to go into the drug business, bringing cocaine from Colombia into this country, selling it to a young man that we now know is Freeway Ricky, proliferating the black community with drugs and taking the proceeds and giving it to fund a war that had already been deemed illegal. So, history is repetitive. We had a criminal signing these laws to put people behind bars and throw away the key when he's the one that started the drug trade. And now we have a criminal that's saying, I'm going to be the law and order president, even though I'm a convicted felon, a sex offender, and have been impeached twice. I'm the best man to bring justice for these cities that are so-called besieged.
Mm.
These cities are besieged about just as much as the so-called, what is the word he's using? The genocide of white South African farmers.
Please.
Right. That's
we
about the
were
amount
talking
of
about
siege that's
immigrants.
going on.
Right. You talk about the immigrants, and it just came to mind about, now you had all these migrants that came up from South America, so forth, and they were leaving areas of where they were being murdered, killed, children being killed, war going on, but they didn't consider them refugees of war. Now you had in Ukraine, as soon as that went off, we started taking in refugees from Ukraine and giving them benefits. But if you came up from the South, where you were being killed, where you were being murdered, where you're raped and all kind of stuff like this for political reasons or whatever reasons they were, but you escaping that and you're illegal. You're no good. You can't come into this country. Same thing like they did with the Haitians, man. The Haitians were coming over here in boats, bro. Rowboats, rafts.
Yeah.
And they would turn them around to go get killed again. But we get some little South Africans that come up from South Africa, right? What do they call Afrikaners? Then they call them Afrikaners. And they say, well, we got a genocide going on. This genocide that nobody has been able to prove. No one's able to seen. I haven't seen the genocide. You have you seen anything about the genocide?
Well, there is no genocide to say anything about as it relates to South Africa.
And they came over here to this country. They're getting all these benefits. They probably gave them land and everything else. So, I know I started off by saying that black and white is a construct, but I'm going to tell you, some things are shoved right down your throat, man, because it seems that people are melanin, they're treated one way. And if you don't have any melanin in your skin, you happen to come from one of those European countries, or if you come from Africa and you happen to be of a different color than the people are there, you come here, they treat you well. They treat you very well.
Well, America has never been a very welcoming place to certain, should I say, demographics, right? Even amongst, say, Europeans. During World War II, there was a ship that left Germany bound for the United States, carrying a cargo of refugees fleeing the Holocaust. When they got to this country, the American government turned the ship around and sent it back to Germany. Almost everyone on that ship died either in a work camp or was executed, right? And these are Europeans that are fleeing a well-documented atrocity.
But they were Jews. And at the time, Jews were not considered white.
They weren't.
They didn't get
They
white until
weren't.
they got here.
And there were a number of laws in this country, anti-Jewish laws, where they
That's
could
right.
not hold certain positions in this country. So, I mean, my point is, America has never been a very welcoming place. If there's not something that America benefits by having you here, then they're gonna, close up the borders real quick. And
Mm.
with the southern border, the problem here is not the immigrants. The problem here is the media and our government, right? Because we keep telling this lie. So, what lie is it? So, I know in the 1970s, there was a new phrase that we began to hear called reverse racism, where Caucasian men now were angered by the fact that they felt as if they were being disenfranchised by programs like affirmative action.
Mm.
Well, here's the real story. None of us wanted affirmative action. 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, 100 years of lynching, burning of major cities like Tulsa, right? The Black Wall Street, and several across this country.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to give us a program that will provide a small portion of us jobs while the rest of us will languish in the ghetto? Who asked for that? Let's go back and check who signed the legislation. Was it Black people? Who introduced the legislation? Was it Black people?
Was it trans
Here,
people? Was it immigrants?
exactly.
Was it anybody except for the people that did it? And we know those people that did it. So
We know what they look like, don't we?
That's right. Because we're going
Yet
after
the
the trans
anger,
people. We're going after the people that are having abortions. We're going after all but none of them people,
signed the legislation.
That's right. And none of them people, guess what? Is taking your tax money.
Right. So they very skillfully turn that anger away from them back on people like the immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
In 2008, the stock market collapsed. It crashed. Who did that? Wasn't the immigrants. It was the people on Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
These greedy Wall Street bankers, right, who were selling junk bonds known as derivatives that caused the market to crash. And then they had the nerve to go down to Washington on private aircraft to say, give us more. That's right.
My Lord.
To say, give us more money to burn through. How many of those people were arrested?
What was the term?
How many of them?
None of them. What was the term back then? Too big
to fail. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them was convicted of a single crime.
Nope.
Not one of them. And the first thing they did after they took taxpayer money, they paid bonuses to their top executives.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who did that? Did the immigrants sneak in on these board meetings and say, no, you got to sink the economy? Who did that?
No, they sure didn't. But
right.
them same people don't have a problem dipping into your pockets now and taking your money now. Yeah, and they're taking the money. And they're telling you straight to your face, we're taking your money. I listen to these hearings, and these are, I guess, they're congressional hearings. And a lot of these people like Robert F. Kennedy and all, they all ask these questions. Well, where's the money going? And why did you take the money out of the SNAP program? And one guy, I forget his name. He's the governor. I forget what state it was, but he had the nerve to say, well, this country doesn't run on money. That's what he said. And we don't have enough money to give out to everybody. That's what we don't have enough money to give out to everybody. But you got enough money that you can give the billionaires $1 trillion cuts. You got enough money to do that. You got enough money that we could take and have a parade that costs $45 million with this, with the fireworks and everything else, right? You got enough money to send the National Guard out. Of course, they sent them out without having proper housing, proper food, but it still costs us the taxpayers. What was it? $134 million that it cost us. You got enough money to do a lot of things except for take care of the people in this country. Because if you live in this country, you're not a billionaire. Anything else, you're a criminal. Pretty much what it is. Because they make being poor a crime. They make being black a crime. All these things. They make DEI a crime. Okay?
So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that this country is headed toward a major recession. Because if you think about it, we've lost thousands of jobs. Not just, and I'm not even talking about the tariffs, I'm just talking about under Doge, the
Mm,
cuts under Doge.
mm.
Now, if you factor in the tariffs, if you factor in lost revenue, how will this country be able to pay its bills?
They're not going to be able to pay.
Keep in mind, right, that yes, we've cut USAID. We're not
Mm-hmm.
sending food sources to some of these impoverished nations, but we are still supporting Israel to the tune of, I think it's $63 million a month,
Please.
so that they can have more bombs to drop on innocent people in Gaza. How is that sustainable? Trump said that he's going to cut taxes. Well, how do you give billionaires $4 trillion in tax cuts? How do you cut jobs and still balance the budget and be able to meet all of our obligations?
And you hear what I said in the beginning. Anybody that wears that MAGA, I don't think you're all racist. I don't think you're all that. But if you wear that hat, you're supporting this. You're supporting the genocide. You're supporting the genocide over there that's going on in Gaza. The same way people made a whole lot of noise. They didn't want, what would they call him? Genocide Joe. They made a whole lot of noise, but now it seems like it's doubled
Mhm.
especially now we got the big hunger rate. People can't eat. They're starving over there. This man is talking about, well, he don't have to do anything in Gaza. He'll just go in there, strip it down, and we'll build houses over there. As a matter of fact, we'll move the people and we'll make it better for them. Sounds like that old pilgrim nonsense, Trail of Tears nonsense. That's what I hear. That's what I'm seeing. Same type of thing. You're killing people that why are you still killing these people?
Well, he's not trying to hide it anymore. In fact, he said the other day that they're going to increase the number of, for lack of a better term, attacks into Gaza, and that they were going to take total control of Gaza. Then he said at some later point or some later time, it will be turned over. But turned over to who? Most of the population right now is suffering from the effects of starvation. So who are you going to turn it over to?
No, he's gonna turn it over to you know what? Probably not even sure. Him and BB, they probably got a deal going that he's gonna get the strip. He'll get to build his luxury apartments and buildings like he wants to. They probably got some deal going there, man.
Well, I'm sure there is. When Israel launched this attack on Iran, if you listen to the response from our government, they said, well, we knew nothing of this. Well, now they're saying that this was well known. It was called Operation Gideon's Sword. You don't launch an operation like that against a country the size of Iran without U.S. backing, without U.S. support. And as soon as Iran began to fire volleys of missiles into places like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, all of a sudden, we called in the Americans. We need the bunker buster bombs. We need direct American intervention. Well, why should the American people put boots on the ground? Why should the American people be fighting Iran when Iran poses no direct threat to the United States? We
Did
talk
you say they're
about,
going over there dancing?
the Israelis?
They said they're gonna put boots on the ground.
Yeah.
They're gonna pop the
Yeah.
fan too? No.
It's unfortunate, with so many, we have a president that might as well be an Israeli citizen, right? And we have a Congress that overwhelmingly takes money from either APAC or the ADL or the JDL or some Israeli pro-Israeli lobby. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into the coffers of Congress. So that almost to a person, all of them say, we support Israel. And they know it if they do not say that, well, the funding is turned off. And now your political rival starts to receive checks from AIPAC.
Mm.
You know, it's really ridiculous that in this country, we have so many students struggling, you know, to get through college, those who have graduated to pay these enormous tuition costs. But our tax dollars go to fund free education in Israel. Right now in this country, we're cutting, I think, over $800 billion from Medicaid and Medicare. We know that almost immediately millions of people will lose their access to health care. However, our tax dollars go to fund free health care in Israel. Why would we do that when we don't have it here?
Again. Please say that again, because I don't think they're urging me.
Our tax dollars go to fund free health care for Israeli citizens. We don't have it here, but they have it there off the back of American taxpayers, as well as free education, free college education, off the money that we give them monthly. So we don't cut the cost of student tuition here. We don't eliminate it, but it's free over there. And not only that, some of these young people that go off to college, some of them, you know, will go to some of the military academies. Some of these young people are going to find themselves in what's called Middle East, fighting to protect a nation that has never really been an ally of this country. It's been more a financial burden, a political burden, a military burden. And there was something that I saw the other day. You know, in 1967, an American ship was attacked by a foreign government. I think about a third of the crew members were killed on this vessel, a U.S. flagged naval vessel that the CIA was using as a listening platform. Clearly, this vessel was flagged as American, and yet this vessel was fired on by, you know, aircraft, military aircraft. Years later, the government of that nation apologized and paid restitution to the families. The ship was called a USS Liberty, and the country that fired on them and killed those sailors, Israel.
You're absolutely correct. We're going to pick this up on the other side next week, if you don't mind, brother. I just wanted to ask you, I know you told me that things are going well with your sister, and you know we got a little thing on the show where we show gratitude or we give praise or actually a prayer. So we've been saying prayers for your sister, and
thank you, brother.
Everything is well. Me, I'm grateful that my father is going to be out of the hospital. He's going through physical therapy at the moment.
Excellent.
So is my niece. My niece is starting to pick up on that physical therapy thing. So let's hope everything goes well. And if anybody would like to call in, their telephone number is right there. The telephone number is 899-3089. That's 908-899-3089. So if you'd like to give us a call, please call in. If you'd like to leave us a comment, please leave us a comment. We like to know how you feel and what you think about the situations of today. We generally talk about local politics, but we like to spread out from time to time. Every now and then we might even drift off from politics, so we get you an opportunity to learn some other things about history. Like first time I ever heard the word Kemet came from that brother right there. Never knew what it was. I used to say Egypt. Never knew what it was. Blacklands, you know, never knew what that was. So you get an opportunity to learn some things and maybe pick up some other information besides Polirics here. Again, my name is Kendall Stevenson. I'm joined with my brother Ron Yates. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like or subscribe. We sure do appreciate it. My name is Kendall Stevenson again with Ronald Yates, and we are out. Peace, my brother.
Peace.